Welcome to the Checkpoint Certified Security Administrator course. In this particular module, we are going to take a look at Remote Access VPN. VPN stands for your Virtual Private Network. VPN is actually used to encrypt traffic between a source and a destination. Okay, so in this particular module, we are going to be using the IPsec VPN. We're going to be configuring VPN. So our goal is to be able to transmit data securely from our remote computer over here and our Active Directory domain controller. Okay, so the assumption is that we have members of staff who are working from their houses, and then we want these members of staff to be able to communicate securely, to be able to send sensitive information from their remote computers to the office network and also download files in a secure manner in such a way that eavesdroppers and even the ISPs themselves cannot gain access to such data. So, to make this possible, an encrypted tunnel is going to be created between the remote access VPN client and the VPN gateway at the office. Okay, so let's dive into the lab. So to do this, there are two things that we need to do. Okay, firstly, we need to configure VPN on the security gateway. And then secondly, we need to download a VPN client on the remote computer. Okay, so talking about VPN, you can have client-based VPN, and you can also have the clientless VPN. So for your client-based VPN, usually IPsec, you need a VPN client to be installed on the remote user computer, and then the encryption takes place between that VPN client on the remote access computer or the remote computer and the firewall at the office. Then you also have the clientless VPN. Now, for the clientless VPN, there is no need downloading any special client or any special software. Rather, the encryption is done from the remote user's web browser and the firewall at the office. In that situation, the user goes to his web browser and then imputes the public IP of the firewall and puts a slash SSL VPN. As an example, say maybe the public IP is maybe 10.1.1.5. So the user goes to his web browser and imputes 10.1.1.5 slash SSL VPN. The very moment he puts SSL VPN, it takes him to a workplace where he can impute his credentials. And if he imputes the right credentials, then from that point, his traffic moving forward is going to be encrypted. However, the focus of this particular module is on the client-based VPN. So talking about client-based VPN, let's download the VPN client. Now to download the VPN client on the remote computer, we'll come to our web browser, we'll search for Checkpoint Remote Access VPN Client. Now when you click on the link, it takes you to Checkpoint's website where you would see different types of VPN clients. You can download the one that is applicable to your system. So if you're using Windows 11, you download for that. If you're using Windows 10, you can download for Windows 10. If you're using MacBook, Apple laptops, you can download for such. If you're using maybe Linux, you download for that. Okay, so having downloaded this, then you come to your download folder, and then when you come to your download folder, you would see the Checkpoint VPN client. All you need to do is double click on it and then you proceed with the installation. Okay, so we'll click on yes. Okay, let's see. Okay, so it is telling us welcome to Checkpoint VPN installation wizard. We'll click on next. Now you can choose to install a secure remote Checkpoint mobile, but for this particular situation, okay, so we can choose Checkpoint mobile, or you can use the endpoint security VPN. Okay, any of them is fine. Okay, let's go for this one. We'll click on next. Okay, we'll click on accept terms and everything. We'll click on next. We'll click on install. Okay, so while the installation is ongoing, let's configure our VPN on the firewall. So we'll come to our admin computer, we'll come to Smart Console, we'll open the participating gateway, or rather the VPN gateway. Okay, let's take a look at terminologies before we do this. So if we come to the topology, there is something called the VPN domain. So VPN domain refers to the local area network that is behind the gateway. Now, the gateway that participates in a VPN is actually called a VPN gateway. Okay, so in this module, we're going to be using terminologies like VPN gateway, and by VPN gateway, we're referring to this particular firewall because this particular user is going to be imputing the external IP address of the VPN gateway. Okay, so you're going to hear terminologies like VPN domain, just like we said. VPN domain refers to the LAN behind the VPN gateway. And then, okay, and this is a remote user. Okay, so let's proceed with the installation. So if we come to admin computer, we'll open this, the first firewall. We are going to check IPsec VPN. Okay, so having checked the IPsec VPN, we'll come to VPN domain. Okay, so for our VPN domain is going to be the HQ LAN. You can choose to use all IP addresses behind the gateway based on topology information, or you can choose to specify a particular LAN that is going to participate as a VPN domain. In this case, we've selected the HQ LAN, that is the 192.168.15.0 subnet. Okay, so having selected this, then the very next thing that we're going to do would be to scroll down to where we have IPsec VPN. Okay, so for IPsec VPN, we're going to select these. Okay, so we are saying that this particular gateway is going to participate in the remote access VPN community. Okay, so we'll select remote access. Then there's a drop down menu or icon over here for the link selection. Okay, so anybody who is trying to access this particular VPN gateway is going to be utilizing, okay, it's going to be utilizing the public or external IP address of the firewall, which is actually 192.168.20.1. But just to confirm, just so that you could agree with me, if you can see the topology, the external IP address of this particular VPN gateway is 192.168.20.1. Okay, which is why we actually selected 192.168.20.1. So having selected this, then the very next thing that we are going to do would be to click on VPN Advanced. Okay, so when we click on VPN Advanced, let's see. Okay, so we need to ensure that NAT traversal is actually selected. Okay, so since this is selected, then we'll come to VPN clients. So when we come to VPN clients, we're going to specify the type of or the types of VPN clients that are going to be permitted. So users are permitted to use secure remote. They are permitted to use Checkpoint Mobile for Windows. They are permitted to use Endpoint Security VPN, which is fine. If you have special needs, you can select more devices as the case may be. Okay, so having done that, then we'll come to authentication. So for authentication, okay, let's see. So we're going to select the authentication method. Now for the authentication method, we're going to change it from the default. Okay, let's change this. So we want them to use, say maybe checkpoint password. Okay, so we want them to use passwords to be authenticated. So we're going to change this to username and password. Now, if you have an AAA server, by AAA we refer to authentication, authorization, and accounting. So if you have an AAA server, say maybe your Cisco ICE, or maybe just maybe say maybe your Cisco ICE. So if you have a Cisco ICE that performs radius and trackers authentication, you can select that particular AA server. Or if you have a secure ID, say maybe you want to use tokens, you can select that. If you want to use personal certificates, you can also select that. But for this particular module, and just as is used in most or for most organizations, you can just choose username and password. Now, if you want, you can choose the user check messages to be shown. Okay, if you want to edit this particular headline, you can edit that to suit your organizational need. Okay, so you select username and password as the authentication method, and then we'll click on OK. So having done this, then the very next thing that we're going to do will be to come, so we'll select office mode. Now, office mode refers to a situation where external users or remote users who are connecting to the office using VPN are giving internal IP addresses in such a way that it appears as if they are in the office. Okay, so to take that again, ideally, users when they are connecting using VPN, the you can check their IP addresses, and their IP addresses will show external or will show external IP addresses that are not part of your IP address range. But if you want to give them special IP addresses to use when they connect to the network, you can select office mode. Okay, so it's optional. You can say fine, you do not want to offer office mode, or you allow office mode as the case may be. Okay, so let's allow office mode for all users. Okay, now the assignment of IP addresses, if you remember, we said that for office mode, external users are going to be given internal IP addresses. Okay, so you can specify the IP address pool where these IP addresses are going to be gotten from. By default, they're going to be gotten from the IP assignment.conf directory. Okay, we'll be taking a look at this later on, but just remember that this assignment by default is going to be done from from the IP assignment.conf directory. Okay, so having done this, then the very next thing that we're going to do would be to allocate this manually, and then we can select the network. Okay, so there's a checkpoint default office mode address pool. We'll select that. If you want, you can also specify the LAN where they're going to be giving their IP addresses from. Okay, so having done this, if we want, we can also specify the optional parameters. For example, we can specify the DNS server. We can specify the primary DNS server, the secondary DNS server, and many more. Okay, you can also specify the IP lease duration. You can say, okay, fine. By default, if they are giving office mode IP addresses, those IP addresses are valid for 15 minutes, after which the IP addresses are going to be released, and then they would automatically renew. That is, they will get new IP addresses. Okay, so by default, it's 15 minutes. You can choose to change that as the case may be. So having done this, if you want, you can specify or you can select anti-spoofing. Okay. So anti-spoofing helps to prevent MAC address spoofing or to prevent spoofing. Okay, spoofing is actually a security threat where external traffic is made to look as if it is originating from the internal network. So if you want to prevent or mitigate spoofing, then you can select this option that says perform anti-spoofing on office mode addresses. Okay, so having selected that, if you want, optionally, you can also select this option that says support connectivity enhancements for gateways with multiple external interfaces. Okay, so having done this, then the very next thing that we're going to do will be to click on remote access. Okay, so having clicked on remote access, if you want to permit layer 2 tunnel protocol, you can select this if you want that. Optionally, but no compulsorily, you need to ensure that NAT traversal is selected. Then, very important, select this option that says support visitor mode. Okay, so having done this, then if you want clientless VPN, if you remember, we said at the beginning of this particular module that your client VPN refers to a situation where you have the VPN client installed on a remote user's computer. But in some cases, you might want to be flexible. So in situations where remote users do not have that VPN client installed on their computers, you might want to be gracious enough to permit them to utilize their web browsers in accessing the corporate network. In that situation, you would select this option that says support clientless VPN. Okay, so if you select that, then you can specify whether you want to use certificate for gateway authentication or whether you do not want the client to present a certificate. You can also choose to accept the triple DES. So 3DES refers to your triple digital encryption standard. So you can choose to use only triple DES for clientless VPN connections if that is what you want. But for this particular module, I'll be on checking this particular option. So having done this, okay, one more thing. We need to note that your VPN uses port 443. Now, your checkpoint Gaia portal also uses the same port 443. So there is going to be a conflict the very moment you configure VPN. This conflict means that you might not be able to gain access to your checkpoint web portal. So it is usually advisable that if you are configuring VPN, then you change the platform administration web portal IP address. Okay, so what we're going to be doing will be to change the socket. If you remember, a socket is a combination of your IP address and the port number. Okay, so we're going to be imputing a port number to this socket. So in this case, we can use, say, maybe 4434. Since 443 is going to be used by VPN, so we can just add a random digit. It naturally must not be 4434. It can be 5050, it can be whatever. But for this particular module, I am changing the, the port number that is associated with Gaia portal to 4434. So having done this, then the very next thing that we're going to do will be to click on OK. Okay, so our next step would be, okay, let's click on OK. So our next step is going to be to create, so we're going to be creating the users, the test users that can access the network. So we're going to come to more, we'll come to, let's see, so we'll come to user. Okay, so user slash identity, we'll select user. Now for the user, we're going to select the default template. Then having selected the default template, we'll click on OK. And then after clicking on OK, we're going to create a name. We'll impute the object name. Now this can be a random name. Let's use say maybe Tiger. Okay, so we're using Tiger as the name, and then we'll come to authentication. For authentication, we're going to change the authentication method to checkpoint password. Then we're going to specify a password for Tiger. So Tiger's password is going to be test at 123. Okay, so we're going to use test at 123 for this user called Tiger. Okay, for the encryption, okay, let's just leave this as it is. So we've selected the authentication method. We'll click on OK. Then the very next thing that we're going to do will be to create a policy for VPN. Okay, so we can come above here and then we'll click on this. We'll click on create a new rule above. We'll call this, say, maybe VPN access. Okay, so we can call this VPN access rule. Okay, so having done this, now for the source, we're going to right click on this option that says source, and then we're going to click on add legacy user access. Okay, so we're going to click on all users, and then location is going to be any. Now for the destination is going to be the HQ land. So we are trying to permit external users to gain access to the HQ land. Okay, so for services and application, this is going to be, well, any for now, or you can specify the exact services that you want them to gain access to. And then for the action, it is going to be accept. Then we're going to log this. Okay, another thing that we can do would be to create an access rule. Now, for this access rule, we'll click on more, scroll down to where we have user slash identity. We'll click on access rule. And then, okay, for this, we're going to call this the VPN underscore access underscore rule. Okay, for the network, it is going to be any network. For the user, okay, we're going to select any user. Or if this particular firewall has been integrated with your Active Directory domain controller. So if it has been integrated with your AD server, then you can scroll down and you select specific users. You click on the plus icon and it takes you to all the users that you have on your Active Directory. But in this case, we'll just leave this as any user. For the machine, it's going to be any machine. And then for the remote access VPN client, it is going to be any client. So having done this, okay, this is fine. Another thing that you can do will be to check the VPN community just to be sure. So if you click on remote access, you will see that we have added CP Gateway 1 to the remote access community. Then if you come to participants user groups, so we can select all users or you can select any other user group as the case may be. Okay, so okay, let's close this. We'll just wait for this to come up. And then after it comes up again, so click on OK and we'll close it. Okay, so let's just click on OK. Okay, so having done this, then the very next thing that we're going to do, let's take a look at our policy again. We'll come to policy and then, okay, for VPN, we're going to right click on this. We'll select specific VPN communities. We'll select remote access. Okay, so having done this, then we can install our policy. Okay, so I'm going to be installing the policy. So if you want to change your office mode IP address, You can come to where you have, okay, so you can come to network objects, then you can come to address ranges. Okay, let's check what this is. Okay, let's click on networks. Okay, so you can see the CP default office mode addresses. So you can actually change this. Okay, so you can change it from 172.16.10.0 to anything that you want it to be on. Is this NATed? Let's check. Okay, so this is NATed. So this is how you change the office mode IP address. If you remember, we said the office mode addresses refer to the IP addresses that external users are going to be given when they connect remotely to the corporate network. Okay, so let's check if our policies have been installed, and if they have been installed, then we're going to go to, okay, fine, they've been installed. So we're going to go to the remote computer. Okay, so we'll come to our remote computer, and then we're going to be test running what we've done. Okay, so as you can see, the VPN client has installed successfully. Okay, so as you can see, this is the VPN client. We're going to double click on this. No site has been configured. Now, by site, they are referring to the external IP address of the VPN gateway. So we're going to click on yes, that we want to configure a new site. We'll click on yes. As you can see, there is a pop-up that says welcome to the site wizard. We'll click on next. We're going to impute the IP address of, that is the external IP address of our firewall, which is going to be 192.168.20.1. Now, if you want, you can change the display name. So you can say maybe hyphen HQ firewall or something. So you can say maybe, so you can just give it the name of your organization or any parameter that you want. We'll click on next, and then it will try to contact that particular site. By site, remember, we're referring to the external IP address of the participating VPN gateway. Okay, so a new site is being created. We are being prompted to verify the certificate information. You can actually check the fingerprint. So if you want to be sure that you're actually connecting to the right gateway, you can take a look at this particular fingerprint information. Okay, let's take a look at the first and the last values. So the first value here is YAM for YAM, and the last value is WALT for WALT. So we'll come to our firewall. We'll log into the firewall. Okay, so when we log into the firewall, we're going to type the command cpconfig. Cpconfig means checkpoint configuration. Then we're going to select, let's see the number. Okay, let's see. Is it number one? No, two, three, four. Okay, so we do not have that. Okay, so that number is not here at the moment. Let's see. Okay, let's see if we can get this from the SMS. Let's confirm. Ideally, we should be able to see this by logging in and then typing the command cpconfig. Okay, so we'll run cpconfig. Okay, this is beautiful. So the reason why we saw this under the SMS is because your SMS also functions as an ICA. By ICA, we're referring to the Internal Certificate Authority. Now, if you remember, when we're talking about SIC, SIC stands for the Secure Internal Communication. We said that Secure internal communication is used to establish trust between your security management server and security gateways. And in addition to the establishment of trust, the secure internal communication is also used for VPN certificate authenticity and for many other things. Okay, so your SMS handles that. So if we select the number 7 for certificate fingerprint, okay, so we can see that this tallies. So we're going to click on no, and then we'll come back to our VPN. Okay, so let's come to the remote computer. So we're going to click on so let's see, we'll click on retry, we'll click on next. Okay, so we'll wait for this to come up again. A new site is being created. Okay, so we're going to click on trust and continue. So the site has been created. So we're going to click on finish, then we'll click on connect. Okay, so we're going to input our username. Now the username, if you remember, is Tiger, and the password is actually test at 123. So we're going to click on connect. Okay, let's see. This is beautiful, as you can see. Let's click on details so we can see everything that is happening. So connection succeeded. We have been able to connect securely to our corporate network. Now, to verify this, okay, just like we saw, connection was successful. We can also come to the admin computer, we'll open Smart Console, then we'll come to logs and monitor. Okay, so when we come to logs and monitor, we'll click on logs just to verify what we've done. We'll click on logs. Then we're going to run a search query. And in that search query, the blade is going to be VPN. So we're going to select VPN as the blade. Then we're going to click on enter. Okay, so when we click on enter, we'll wait for this to come up. If it takes some time, it is probably maybe because indexing is being done. Okay, this is beautiful. So as you can see, we have information. Let's see. Okay, so firstly, you can see the office mode IP address 172.16.10.1. It was gotten from this place, as you can see, 172.16.10.0. Okay, so it was successful. Let's come to the remote computer. So on this remote computer, if okay, from our topology, check the IP address. The IP address from the topology is 172.31.0.5. But when we run, okay, so if we bring up command prompt and then, okay, so having brought up, so when we bring up command prompts, if we run the command ipconfig, we'll see that we are being given an office mode IP address. Okay, so as you can see, the our normal IP address is 172.31.0.5, but for the office mode, it is 172.16.10.1. To also verify this, you can come to your network and internet settings, and then when you try to check your adapters, let's see if we can gain access to our adapters. Okay, and let's go through this route. We'll select network connections. Oh, okay, so it's still the same thing. Let's see. Can we see our network adapters? Let's scroll down. Okay, okay, let's scroll up a little bit. Okay, Let's keep scrolling up. Okay, it's not showing here. But then from command prompt, you can see 172.16.10.1. Another thing that we can do again would be to come to the admin computer. Okay, let's go back to the remote computer and then we're going to run a ping. So let's try pinging, say maybe 192.168 dot, let's see, 15.4, which is our Active Directory domains controller. As you can see, we have access to 192.168.15.4 because we are now in the office LAN, in the corporate LAN. Okay, so if we come back to the admin computer and say maybe we try to refresh the logs that were generated. So if we try refreshing this, okay, so let's just refresh our logs so you can see. Okay, so let's select this particular packet. So if you check this, you would see that the blade is VPN, the feature is VPN, the scheme is IKE, the Internet Key Exchange, and then you can see the methods that were used. Okay, so you can see the source of the traffic. So we tried running the ping from 172.16.10.1, which is our remote computer, to 190.168.15.4. Okay, another way to verify this again, apart from checking the logs, would be to, okay, let's see. So another method is to click on the plus icon, and then when we click on the plus icon, we'll look for funnel. Let's see, or is it general overview? Let's check. Oh, okay, so that's here. Let's click on the plus icon. Okay, let's maximize our screen. Let's see what we've got here. Okay, so as you can see, these are the logs that we have, and then the padlock icons over here actually represent a VPN. Okay, so this is VPN, it's successful. So this is showing us that we have been able to configure our remote access VPN successfully. Okay, so if we come back to the remote computer, okay, if we come back to this remote computer and we right click on this, let's see. Okay, so so you can see the VPN options. Okay, so it has been connected. We can click on advanced in case you want to enable login and you want to change some things. Okay, so we can close this. Another thing that we can also do would be to click on show client. And then when we click on show client, as you can see, VPN, we can see the active site and then it is actually connected. So if we click on VPN again, you can see the IP address, the external IP address of the VPN gateway, how long we've been connected. We can see the number of encrypted packets and the number of decrypted packets as well. So with this, we come to the end of this particular module. I'll meet you in the next one. Thank you.